under the tenure of Ben Jealous, we've had a lot of organizational restructuring and chaos and budget instability. And PWU is really, the workers that are represented by PWU are very well aware of our financial realities. So this is not, the strike is not about us, as we've been seeing us portrayed in the news, as just like wanting a bunch of expensive benefits that the organization can't absorb right now. It's really more of just structural chaos that's been happening over the last year and a half. It's really difficult for us to get our work done when we are losing institutional knowledge.
They're part of a much bigger fight. Like, unions everywhere are having to stand up more and more against bad actors in the workplace. And I think also that people are becoming more empowered to do that. And that it's the most important tool that we have to be exercising. And so I think it's just more and more like, this is where we're at. This is what the movement is. Unionize if you're not. And if you are unionized, actually enforce your contract. Like, if they're violating your rights, unfair labor practices and grievances, like there's a lot of tricks, and a lot of the times we as a union tried to work things out with Sierra Club, and it's just gotten worse. And so you're not being uncooperative by enforcing your contract. Like, you have to enforce your contract.
Welcome back. It's really good to be back with you guys as a community. It's been a little while since you've heard from us. We've been quietly restructuring how we do these videos, how we create this content. We listened to a lot of feedback that we got from you all about wanting more sort of in-depth, timely information. So as you know, we've restructured ourselves. Now our main focus is both our newsletter as well as the content that we put out on social media. And so I have, unfortunately, a really, really, really timely conversation for you today. One that's including a union that I helped co-found, that I'm extremely proud of what they've been doing over the last few years, that is now embroiled in a fight that unfortunately they've had to continue, that we started. And that union I'm talking about is Progressive Workers Union. You can see that I'm wearing the old school shirt in solidarity with them from when we founded. And I have someone here with us today who is the current president of PWU, and then will later be joined by the newly minted vice president of PWU, Progressive Workers Union. And one thing I should note is that, Progressive Workers Union is one of the most high-profile unions in the labor movement. They mainly represent folks from environmental nonprofit organizations, but they represent a few folks, I believe, outside of that scope. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the president of PWU. Welcome, CJ.
Thanks for having me here, Larry. So I am CJ Garcia-Lintz, she, her pronouns. I'm based in Michigan on the land of the Anishinaabe. I am the president for a couple more weeks, and Walter Keaty and Erica Dott will be taking over as president, vice president. I'm very excited. PWU, feels strange saying this in front of you, because you founded. We're one of the founders of PWU, but we started at Sierra Club in the 90s, and as John Muir Local 100. And it was really important to have a space in the labor movement that not only understood the unique needs of environmental nonprofits, but also the more marginalized communities and voices that have been historically intentionally excluded from some spaces. And so we really wanted to center the people whose voice was not at the table. And then in 2017, in order to sort of like come into alignment with our values as a union, our name was changed from John Muir Local to Progressive Workers Union to reflect that there was a history of John Muir's that we did not want to be celebrating or honoring. We represent staff. It's around 550, a little bit less now with some layoffs that we've been enduring in the Sierra Club units. But we started in Sierra Club, but now we represent staff at Greenpeace USA, Appalachian Voices, 350.org, Union of Concerned Scientists. So we do represent nonprofit environmental organizations.
Excellent, excellent. And we've been seeing a lot of media stories over the last year or two about Sierra Club. One of the best titles I saw is "What in the World is Happening at the Sierra Club?" So give us a little summary of sort of how we got to this moment where Progressive Workers Union is on the brink of striking at the Sierra Club, where you all, we always have an essence of cooperation in our union. So if you're in this position, even though I'm not there, I know that you were pushed to that point. So give us sort of a summary of what's been happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in the last couple of years, most intense transitions and good paying, living wage jobs, and that's not what our staff have been facing internally. As you know, when you were there, we were getting to a place where we were really building relationships and starting to be able to resolve things in collaboration. That quickly dissolved. And so some of the things, we have 9 unfair labor practices out right now. It's
Wow.
we have tried lots of tactics. This is the last thing anyone in Sierra Club wants to do is strike. No one wants to be, not making a paycheck. They don't want to be missing work. People are concerned about the things that are happening in their community. And they want to be doing the work. And so there's this misconception that, Sierra Club labor somehow isn't concerned about what will happen with the work. We through all of this chaos, we've been doing the work on the ground and building the relationships and being responsible for the wins, right? Sierra Club and other nonprofits are not like a corporation or, a manufacturer that has a product, right? The product in these organizations is the most brilliant organizers in the country. And you've hired them to do a job. And then when, chaos at the leadership level sort of makes it impossible for us to do that job with integrity and in alignment with our Hermes principles, it's up to us to draw a line.
That's right. And we received the solidarity request from your trustee, which I'll share the links below here. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're on social, we'll have links in the bios there. But I want to read a section from that solidarity request. Dylan Plummer, the trustee of Progressive Workers Union, shared with us today at UnionBase. The Sierra Club executive leadership's mismanagement has led to a second round of layoffs, an organizational restructuring in 12 months, resulting in over 200 staff leaving the organization. Despite our best efforts to work with management to reduce the impacts of layoffs and find alternative options to reduce expenses, management has refused to engage in good faith bargaining around layoffs, violated our contract, and unnecessarily locked workers out of their computers before giving them an opportunity to wrap up their affairs and say goodbye to colleagues. Simply put, Sierra Club's executive leadership is blaming its workers for their own mismanagement of the organization's finances while taking drastic action to undermine the union as a scapegoat. We honestly expected more from our executive director, Ben Jealous, who pretended to be a labor champion on the UAW picket line just last year. Yet he's only met with PWU leadership once since he started. I gotta say, this is unfortunately extremely familiar given the behavior from the previous executive director. And I gotta ask, can you give a little bit more context around, these layoffs, what that's been like, as well as, what the violations to your contract have looked like?
Yeah, I will probably let Erica handle some more of those questions when you're talking with Erica around the violations, because she's definitely been more on track following that more closely. Yeah, that's really rough. So, we had layoffs last year as well, and we don't want to end up in this place again. And so some serious changes have to be made in the leadership area. When I was talking earlier about like community relationships and just transitions, when someone is like notified and then immediately locked out of their documents, they don't get a chance to like send emails and respond to the people in the community that they have meetings with, or that they were planning events with. We have I was speaking earlier about, we have a military outdoors program, right? And we know that we want to make sure that we are approaching all of our relationships in a meaningful way. And so when we have a staff member who's saying like, okay, we're going to do this great work with veterans in your community, we're really dedicated to making sure that you have access to the outdoors, And then 2 weeks later, like, I'm sorry, I've been laid off. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep this promise to you. There are other ways and other options that PWU had come to the table with to help reduce the budget, and it didn't have to come at the expense of the workers.
Got it. And recently, the Progressive Workers Union did a vote and found that there's no confidence in Ben Jealous. Is that right? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, I think that, we've been trying desperately to talk to anyone in leadership, try to have conversations with the board. We used to have, closer relationships with the board of directors. We don't speak to them now, and that could be legal guidance because we are in bargaining. But we've tried everything, and Ben is unwilling to come to the table and talk to us. And so I don't understand how he can complete his mission of doing things like fighting for good, clean jobs, supporting workers on strike lines and other, with the UAW and other places, and denying those to his own staff. It's wild to me that he thinks he can be someone who can help move labor and clean energy together if he can't even come to the table and talk to his own staff, right? Like, at any point, he could have come to us. It's been a long time that we've been trying, we've been patient, we've been cooperative. And Sierra Club just continues to show us again and again that they're willing to, even in some cases, do or say illegal things, which is why we have to file a charge. And I think they're hoping that by the time they, push their agenda through, it'll be really too late for anything to happen, because, things at the labor board can move slowly, or, union busting tactics, layoffs, things can really, diminish union numbers. But this union is very strong, and that's not turning out to be the case. I very much thought that PWU was bluffing, and I think that says a lot about how serious these infractions are and what the conditions have become under Ben Jealous's tenure, that people are willing to take a risk to lay off. Like, it's terrifying for a lot of our members. But what's more terrifying is to continue under a leadership team that is so chaotic, and that is just we have no confidence in.
Yeah, and I'm not there, so I'm gonna say this, and you don't have to comment on it if you don't want. But I did hear a narrative in the media that Ben was calling Progressive Workers Union racist, and I had to laugh at that. I mean, number one, Ben comes from the NAACP, the National Advancement of Colored People, right? And former executive director over there. And I was one of the first founders of Progressive Workers Union, and I find it funny that from the external, people might hear that and think, "Oh yeah, it's a predominantly white organization, therefore the union is probably mostly," and therefore they connect the dots to racist. But Progressive Workers Union is extremely diverse. We have people from all kinds of backgrounds. Our leadership has been women, people of color, has been lots of different folks. And I was actually just particularly disgusted because I knew what he was doing. And I'll say to you, Ben, if you're watching this, it's pretty low to use race as an excuse not to treat your workers well. Just as bad as it is for a white man to do something that's racist, to be a black man and then use a race card against your workers, it's just straight pitiful. And I'm saying that to you as a black man. I'll also say that I tried to back channel with you to see if you needed a bridge, because maybe you had misconceptions about Progressive Workers Union. But as an executive director, as a person who was formerly an executive director, I understand that leadership is about talking to people, listening to them, and trying to work something out. I'm really upset that we're at a point where Progressive Workers Union now has to show you that they're serious, because they are serious. But that's me stepping off of my stool for a second. So to get back into this, what happened, or what has happened in bargaining? I mean, I know you guys are tough but fair bargainers. So what happened in bargaining that made you all end up filing ULPs, and us getting to this point of having to file a strike? Because it's this weird combination. So if you could explain it to the listeners, it's this weird combination of, you have massive layoffs going on one hand. The organization is, however many millions of dollars over budget because of lack of raising funds or whatever it may be. And then at the same time, you have this background in bargaining. So like, how has the situation brought us here, and what has been the impact of being in a union versus not being in a union?
Yeah. So Erica will be able to get into. They're at the table right now bargaining as we speak, so we're hoping to see something. Originally this contract was going to be bargained back in 2022. The organization was undergoing similar restructuring, similar layoffs, and so we ended up renewing that contract for a year because we didn't want our members to go without cost of living adjustments and things like that. And then 2023 rolled around, and it became very increasingly difficult to get Sierra Club to come to the table. And I'm sure you recall from when you were bargaining, and my first round of bargaining with the chapter unit, we actually were across the table from one outside counsel, and then some legal team, but a lot of the department heads, or and people from different programs in the organization that we had relationships and would have conversations with. This became a much different experience where there was, 3 outside counsel, 2 chief of legal, no one we had relationships or could have conversations with. And it became a very quickly became just sort of an unkind process. And it didn't need to be that way. It never needs to be management versus us. Ultimately, we all want the good of the organization, and we want Sierra Club to live its values with how it treats its staff. And so, it's been very challenging to get them to come with any new proposals, to do anything other than just say no to our proposals. And then they're even trying to attack things and protections that we've already had since, you negotiated a contract, right? And for instance, the protections around our Article 1 and how we grieve discrimination, harassment, and bullying, they want to change our rights in that area, and that's not acceptable, right? We can't have that, because and the whole reason that we have such a progressive article like Article 1, which is different than what a lot of other unions would even consider putting in a contract, was because we have experience with Sierra Clubs whenever they have internal chaos in the management level, or there's a lot of people rotating in and out of roles and inconsistency in the knowledge that holds those offices, our members can suffer, right? And that process was not working. It's still not working properly. The EOC policy is not working, and it's not safe for our members. And so we're not going to give up this very hard won article.
Absolutely. And, for those who don't remember or haven't been following us since, back in the day, I will be editing in some of the clips from our previous bargaining, because, and the reality is that PWU is an extremely powerful union, but it's only as powerful as the support that they get from other unions. UAW, all the folks who signed petitions, called executive directors, all this other stuff. We need you guys to support PWU. And like I said, we're going to put a link to the solidarity request at the bottom here. But what CJ is alluding to is that PWU, every step of the way, has given olive branches and bridges off of this path. However, Sierra Club has been playing tough ball, because Ben Jealous has been playing tough ball. And now, hardball. And now, we're at this point where, Sierra Club, are you saying that we're on strike, or that we may be on strike soon?
So they voted to approve the strike. The national unit, the chapter units have a different contract. That's a whole other frustrating situation. But so the national unit voted to strike, and they are in bargaining right now. Our team has been getting to the table as much as possible, and Sierra Club's called a couple meetings. The first couple weren't very productive. They wanted to talk about how to avoid a strike. They wanted to know what PWs needed to avoid a strike. We made it very clear. They weren't willing and thought we were bluffing. And today, I think once they realized that we actually did pass the vote to go on strike, and our members are ready, we've told them that, unless we can resolve something, they will go on strike on Tuesday morning.
Hey, this is the power and the right that we have, and we're behind you on that. So let me ask, given the situation that we're in now, what do you want everyone to know about Progressive Workers Union and about what you're trying to do in bargaining?
What I want everyone to know is we are actually trying to live in our Jimenez principles. We have heard a lot of terrible things in the press. It's never great when someone who professes to be a big labor guy, routinely gaslights and calls the bargaining team and the union liars in the media, or they send emails to all staff that are just not accurately portraying what's happening at the table. And what we want people to know is that Progressive Workers Union cares deeply about the Sierra Club. We have been there for a long time doing the work. We are dependent on the mission of our organization to be successful in order to be able to breathe and have access to clean water and access to the outdoors. Right. We really love our community. We love the work that we're doing. We love the volunteer leaders in the Sierra Club. There are a lot of managers that we get along well with. And there's this misconception. I wouldn't say misconception. There is a narrative being put forward that we don't care about the organization and we just want to tear it down. And it's actually quite the opposite. We've worked very hard for this organization. We don't want to see all the work that happened, especially with the work with like restorative accountability, transformative justice, and our environmental justice programs. And a lot of that is sort of slipping back. We don't want to see a regression in all the progress we've made. So, and then, yes, I'm glad that you brought up the race thing earlier, because it is hurtful, especially it was really hard on Vice President Leah Clyburn, who's just left to work for the EPA, as a Black woman, to have this Black man pulling the race card. We've asked for examples, and I think maybe one was there was a meme about an Uno card, but there was really nothing there was nothing racist about it. It was just, it was just an anti-management meme. And we've asked repeatedly for examples, because if we did something intentionally or unintentionally, we would want to take accountability for that and do what's right, because this is a community that we were all going to be working in. It's simply not what's happening. We're holding people accountable for the decisions that they're making, and decisions that are really irresponsible and harmful to our mission and to our organization and to our communities, right? And that has nothing to do with race. It doesn't matter who's in that role. We held Mike Byrne accountable when Byrne was there. We will hold anyone accountable. We're starting to, hold the board accountable for continuing to have this situation and not really attempt to talk with the union in any way. So again, they might be legally instructed not to because of bargaining happening. So I'm really hopeful that right now Erica Dott is working miracles at the bargaining table, and Sierra Club's coming to their senses, and we don't have to strike, but it's really up to Sierra Club at this time. We're not asking for anything ridiculous.
That's right. And we're going to do a follow-up interview with Erica Dott and get the sort of, what's happening now type of report. And look, I'll say it's clearly a tactic. And I know that because, when I was president, they focused that energy on me. And I was Black, so they couldn't call me racist. So they found a different angle, right? It was that same sort of narrative about wanting to destroy the organization. And I think the day that we got that agreement, that 5-year agreement that just ended, that you all are working to re-up and improve like we do every cycle, is that the tension sort of subsided. And I think everybody realized for the first time over a 2 to 3 year bargaining process, or the buildup was 1 year, and then it was like a year and a half of traveling back and forth to bargain. Everybody, including the management, realized that we really did want a deal. And I think that's the problem in bargaining sometimes is, when one side gets lost and thinks that it's about winning instead of coming to a deal. The whole point is to build a better, stronger organization with a contract that works for everyone and decreases the tension. And I'm very, very confident that you all are going to get to a really great contract, and it's going to come clear what your intentions were the whole time, and you'll say, why didn't we do this in the first place? Now I know you've got to get back to some really important work, so let me just give you the sort of final word here. We're very, very grateful for you joining on our platform and sharing the reality of what's happening, sort of in between the lines. How can we help union leaders, workers, anyone who cares about the fight, and we want to just support you until you get that contract and beyond? What can we do to support you?
Well, thank you so much. So this is a great opportunity. So like having a platform to really get out there and speak full truth is a really wonderful thing. Retweeting and resharing our social media is huge. Kind of gets the word out there. We will be releasing some things on our website and in some emails to our allies to let them know when the Solidarity Strike Fund is up, so we'll be able to take donations for some folks that are that may need a little extra little extra help. Yeah, really hope that Sierra Club comes to their senses. Stay tuned. We're definitely sending out all the ways that people can help. The team is right now in the process of getting everything set up and finalized, and just excited to push send on some of those things so that we can, dig in for the long haul. This is an indefinite strike. Hopefully it won't have to happen, or it'll happen very soon, but just having these opportunities to be in community. If people are available to go to picket lines that we'll be having around, virtual picket lines, there's a whole list of ideas coming out. So thanks for asking.
Awesome. Well, let me just take this moment to say it's a real honor to be able to speak with you in this moment. Having been sitting in your seat, I don't envy you, because I know how much stress it can be to be against such a sort of Herculean opponent. But at the same time, I have complete faith in you and your leadership. And I know the union is in great hands. And I know that you built a union that will last, which is what we do. We build a union that lasts and we move on. And this is a great way to end your tenure as president of Progressive Workers Union. So let me give you your flowers and say, since I've left and Neha has been president, we've had a couple presidents, right? You all have continued to build the organization and to reform it into a way that expands. You've added additional units into the union. You've brought them in as dues payers. You've built educational programs. There's so much positive stuff happening. And at the same time, there's a flood of people who have been, quietly trying to get into the union, as you all have been sort of trying to deal with that tension of expansion, right? You can only grow so much without having to educate the new workers that come in, figure out what you're going to do, like, in terms of those contracts you have to settle. But I believe this moment is a sign of growth. It's a sign of strength. And the rest of the labor movement is watching. You're going to continue to show them how it's done. And all due respect to you. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. The new brilliant leaders of PWU, I'm very excited to see what they do.
We had a conversation first with the president of Progressive Workers Union. Now we're going to have a conversation with the newly elected vice president of Progressive Workers Union, someone who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, who I've been in union fights with, I've been in organizational takeovers with, who is just someone that you really need to look out for if you're in the labor movement, someone who is now trying to get this union past this really tough moment. Her name is Erica Dot. Welcome, Erica, to the conversation, to the union-based community. I want to just first thank you for taking the time to have this conversation after hours. It's 6:55 Eastern, and you just stepped out of bargaining. Having been in bargaining, I know how stressful it is. I know how difficult it is. So thank you. We appreciate it. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Larry. Just always appreciate talking with you and getting a touch base. And definitely you left a legacy behind for our PWU union. So thanks for touching base. And it's been a long day. We spent well over 6 hours at the table and are trying earnestly to reach an agreement before we have to strike on July 2nd.
Wow. Well, let me just say, people ask all the time, how do you all do what you did at Sierra Club? This is a common question. And the reality is there were people like you, like Neha, like Leah, like so many people I can't even really name at this moment. Well, I said in my conversation with CJ, president of PWU, we'll do a longer form video where we tell the whole story. We'll edit in clips from last bargaining and stuff like that. But you all are, when you're the president, in some ways you're the face. And yes, you make some decisions, you lead the bargaining. But it's the leadership of the union next to you, around you, that makes it happen and keeps it alive. And the reason I felt comfortable handing over the reins was because people like you are still there. So without further ado, let's jump into the conversation. We want to give folks sort of a unabashed, this is where we're at, this is how we got here, sort of summary of the situation in terms of bargaining at Sierra Club. So our first question for you is, PW has been in the media a lot over the last, I'd say, couple years about Sierra Club, even though they're only one employer that you all represent. So how did we get here in terms of Sierra Club going through these massive layoffs that we keep hearing about?
Yeah, it's been such a culture shift here at Sierra Club. It's always struggled. Sierra Club has always struggled to live its values truly. And then we have seen sort of an onslaught of bringing in management over the last couple of years that seems really bent on trying to rein in the union more or less, but also the shift of what's happening at Sierra Club, I think, can really point to really points to when Ben Jealous came on, and that happened March of last year. And so we've only been in this for about a year, but before there was a bit of there was more of a culture of like trying to find resolution, definitely more squeamish about doing union busting more directly. And now we see Ben Jealous and his team is a lot less squeamish about doing union busting behavior. And a lot of that has just been totally new for all of us. Like, we haven't faced this amount of trying to undermine our contract, which is the biggest problem that one of the biggest problems that we're facing is that during contract negotiations, Ben Jealous's team has been trying to take away really just crucial labor rights that most unions would expect to have in their contract. Such as, they've throughout this have tried to undermine progressive discipline process, making it essentially just cause. We've recently found some movement away from that based off of our leverage, but they've tried to take away our grievance rights on Article 1, which is our retaliation, bullying, harassment, and discrimination clause, toxic behavior. There's like 5 things. And they've also they've tried to undermine the pay equity and recreate a 2-pay tier system in our organization. We're really trying to maintain grievance rights, our work time. They've tried to create new criteria under work time and work hours that would essentially allow them to work us for whatever business purpose, and make it impossible to grieve. And then every other article in work time, they've wanted to take away our grievance rights directly. So it's essentially just like this constant onslaught. And there's just other things that have come up, like they want to make not filling in timesheets, they try to make that fireable. We're really working on that situation right now. They also try to take away our layoff protections, and they're trying to extend their management rights. They're trying to limit what an arbitrator can determine as a ruling. So basically taking away arbitration, a lot of our arbitration rights that we would have. And and on top of that, they just generally refuse to do any sort of like unification. We tried to do chapter and national unification to they didn't really have any reason not to do this, but they chose not to do a unification between chapter and national staff. This might be too technical, but we were trying to get a clarification of our unit generally in our contract. And that was something that they would not move on. And it's just been very clear that they're just trying to circle around it and find every excuse not to do it. So yeah, we've been in there. We also approached them about a voluntary merger with SCA, and they've been resisting and giving us the runaround around that. So there's been this huge culture shift in terms of like anti-union proposals. Our lawyer described it as the worst anti-union campaign he's ever seen in an organization that already has existing contracts. And so that says something, that like this new management came in, and if we had had a union, this is what we would have been expecting of like Starbucks or Amazon or other big corporations to be treating workers this way. And basically we're just seeing, on top of that, we've had to file 9 unfair labor practices, and we actually have more that we're likely going to be filing. But some of the crux of those were, one, they made a plan before the board of directors to push our contract, to slow walk our contract negotiations, and under the guise of another restructuring, moved to get us into a striking position, and then terminate all of the national staff while striking under the guise of restructuring, and try to have them reapply for their jobs under chapter. So that was a whole plan to try to break our union and be able to get rid of the national unit that we were made aware of, and we moved expeditiously on to file that unfair labor practice. We also learned that during impact bargaining last year on layoffs that Ben Jealous made a plan with other leaders to fire me for my role in negotiations and as the national unit rep. And so we have filed an unfair labor practice around that as well. And now we are seeing that I have made it on this round of layoffs. I am 8 months pregnant. I was also the lead negotiator on getting better pregnancy disability and pregnancy leave. And it's pretty ironic that they are laying me off before I could ever benefit from those from those provisions that I was the lead negotiator on. They did know I was pregnant. And then other ones we really big. I don't know if I mentioned on this one, but I think I did. Article 1, the provision I mentioned earlier, they have been moving to say deny all grievances that would pertain to Article 1, claiming that we never had your ability to grieve Article 1, and then simultaneously trying to remove that from bargaining during bargaining in the new contract. And so that was one of our unfair labor practices, is that they were unilaterally changing our contract, including chapter contract, because chapter contract also has Article 1. What else? They've created new workplace rules that we also see as a direct violation. We also are in the middle. They were supposed to issue it this week. It's Friday. I just realized that it didn't come through, but they just found merit in one of our ULPs, and that was around staff calls and them blocking Section 7 rights, like our ability to have union activity on those calls. And so we're still waiting for a remedy on that from the labor board. And then we've basically have had to file 2 bad faith bargaining charges based off of impact bargaining and contract bargaining on how they have designed proposals. And I am so tired at the end of the day, what's it called, when they regressive proposals. They have put forward some regressive proposals. And so there's more. They also, as we reached layoffs this year, we have always been in contention on how they do not follow our voluntary severance package. They basically only give it to people who they intend to lay off. And on top of that, they decided to violate our contract and our Section 7 rights by everyone that they intended to involuntary layoff. They locked out of Sierra Club and put us on paid admin leave, which is a violation of our contract. We are not, that is not how you use administrative leave. So they have pushed us out already, and started changing our away messages, saying that we've already been laid off and other things like that. I'm probably looking at some of this. I think I got the crux of our ULPs in there, but that's I think just more of here's like the major labor laws that they're breaking on top of contract bargaining that we're facing an onslaught of. And in terms of, we aren't getting transparency around the budget as much as we would want to, and they're claiming that it's no one's fault. We would say otherwise, that like very clearly we have new leadership that has come in. They more or less admitted on one of the staff calls that they botched the restructure of last year. And we're not sure. They also told us that the layoffs of last year were fixing the budget problem, and how we have landed again with 10% or more of our staff. And on top of that, we've been able to look and see that over 200 people have left over the last year in this organization. We have had a massive exodus of our senior leadership that wasn't laid off the first time. And generally just the morale is so low that people are leaving beyond being laid off. And so there's also the secondary attrition. We're noticing too that they're moving jobs out of the union in this restructure, and kind of arbitrarily like giving one person to manage, or claiming that people are under confidentiality. And so as we see jobs continuing, they're still hiring right now, but these are non-union jobs that they're hiring for. And so there's not a hiring freeze at all in this organization while these layoffs are undergoing. And then I think one thing that some more things to note is that we've learned that executives and some of the high earners, like what their pay is, and all of the executive leaders appear to have gotten, this was a leaked document to us by trusted individuals, so take that for what it will. But we are under the belief, according to this, that everyone received a raise this year, even though our staff has not. Like our employees have not received their raise because of contract negotiations as they seek to take away our 7% raise. And we also have heard that they've gotten bonuses, and we don't know exactly what that is. And then we've also just noticed there was a list that was also given to us that were people that we know didn't undergo a hiring process, and their salaries as well, as they brought in. And so Ben Jealous has brought on a huge onslaught of people that are his friends and from other organizations. Well, we've had, kind of a demolishing of our older trusted leaders, or more trusted than a lot of ways. Things that we noticed is just, Ben Jealous is traveling with a photographer, with security. He has a personal driver. He's also undergone massive renovations of his DC office. There's some various things we've heard. I think I can share this one, but like I think he also has like a Ring camera now outside of his office, which is just kind of funny. I think that one would be obvious. And we did a little breakdown here too, Larry, of like 88% of these people on our executive list here are paid more than 50% of the average chapter staff. We did some different analysis. Ben Jealous made 592% more than the average chapter staff salary. And that's before we calculate benefits and bonuses. So there's just, I think another big thing is that we're really hitting on is that they've hired in an anti-union consultancy firm called Huron Consulting Group, which has sort of been brought into universities to undo like tenures and also unions, and noticing that is a very choice decision to help them with this budget is to restructure as well under these conditions. And so I don't know if that quite tells you every way that we got here, only that it moved quickly. As soon as Ben Jealous got here, things moved quickly. It was like, restructure layoffs, don't let them have, and it's the same thing this year. Like it's like, go it from the go, see if we can get them off their game so that like this can't be fought back on. So we've just been in a whirlwind marathon trying to keep up with how much they're coming after with layoffs and restructuring and various things like that.
That was an amazing overview, and it sounds like there's been just an all-out attack on everything from concerted activity, which is a bedrock of worker rights under the National Labor Relations Act, to firing long-term employees, to not negotiating in good faith, to committing unfair labor practices. This is a lot, and unfortunately, when you read traditional media, it's difficult to get most, if any, of this context, because usually you only hear, oh, there's a strike going on. You don't understand how we got here. So that's why it's extremely valuable to hear from somebody like yourself that's on the inside and can explain exactly the context behind why PW has had to fight as hard as it has to just maintain ground. So I think that this might be a good point to look at the sort of PW analysis of the financial situation at Sierra Club. Can we do that for a moment?
Yeah, I think I kind of did a breakdown, but generally it appears as though like we did not have this many executive leaders previously. Like we used to have I think it was 2 people on the executive staff, and now if you scroll down, there's just like Ben Jealous is even included in this, but we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, now 8 because Kevin was moved in, 8 in addition to Ben Jealous's position. And so we're very well aware that they are they've hired in, they've really made this organization top heavy, and people are getting extraordinary wages at this point. And
Just for clarification, this list is executive earners at the Sierra Club, right? And this is a nonprofit environmental organization where a lot of what's happening here is donor money, correct?
yes, and then Kevin Harris also has been moved up in that position too, into executive chart. So we're missing him too. But yeah, this is the pay of folks and the way that they've, bumped up leadership in this time, especially as we've been facing budget crises for the last year.
Without knowing a whole lot about the finances of Sierra Club, other than what I see in the media, it's pretty interesting for an executive director of a environmental nonprofit, no matter how big, to have a personal driver and have their nephew in that role. That's pretty strange. I mean, also, when I always wonder about organizations that hire anti-union firms and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on those firms, but at the same time, they're saying that they're in financial difficulty and that they can't afford to pay raises that they're paying. All that stuff is very strange to me. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear that where they're investing money is to, create. It doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't be putting more money on the ground to do this work, and why this money would be distributed upwards in this way. And a lot of these things, like having a security, like personal security that's on our dime, or having a personal driver on our dime, like those things are not something that we've seen in this nonprofit prior to this.
Well, look, I think you gave us a lot of context. Let me actually ask you a question here. This is sort of like where we get people focused on, what we want them to do to support you. So I'm going to ask it in that frame, and then the last question will be sort of, what do you want people to know about PWU at this moment? Okay.
Yeah.
So given everything that you've given us in terms of context, with regards to Sierra Club, how much you all have fought just to get a contract, just to sort of stop these sort of these layoffs and things like that. What would you say is the best way for us to support you? Union leaders, regular folks out there in the street, workers, people who have been inspired by PWU and what it's done over the last 6 or 7 years. What would you suggest that we do to support you?
Yeah, we have a little toolkit that would love to share with you, Larry. And I don't have it open on my computer. I can rattle off a few things. One is that we
put that in the bio here for anybody who wants to check that out.
Cool. So we have a sign-on letter that's going on for organizations. So one of the requests there is don't cross the picket line if we go on strike. So if you're working with Sierra Club, like we're working on not crossing the picket line. And in addition to that, just generally putting pressure on management that they need to come to the table with us to find a fair agreement. And I should probably outline that fair agreement a little bit more, because it's a little bit of a trifecta. So I'll say that in a minute. But the other things are tweeting at Ben Jealous, telling them to come to the table with PWU, retweeting things that PWU posts. Those things are immensely helpful, especially to get public pressure on them. And then we are also setting up a strike fund, because we believe that we are going to be striking likely on July 2nd, unless Sierra Club comes to the table. And so those are ways that you can support us and moving forward so that we can hold it. And I'll give like the quick overview. The strike platform right now is over 3 things. It's over unfair labor practices, and it's around the retaliatory firings. I'm not the only union leader who's being fired. We have found that our bargaining team and our elected officials and our stewards are under attack, and they have we believe that those are retaliatory firings. We also are directly going after their Article 1, their desire to unilaterally change Article 1, as I mentioned before, on discrimination, harassment, etc. Our ability to enforce that. And then we also have a proposal around us giving up our 7% across the board raise. Again, executive leaders have refused to take any solidarity cuts associated with this, and Sierra Club first approached us about having us remove our 7% raise, which is a one-time thing that we bargained to have just for this year, as a way to not fully adjust, but like somewhat account for inflation over the course of our contract. And so we have been trying to negotiate on getting that 7% raise. They keep trying to time out their offer on that, and they have been unamenable to our conditions, which is that we've been trying to push for seniority on like they won't tell us they wouldn't tell us forever who they were selecting. They are trying to, we also wanted to have a moratorium on layoffs until 2025, and and that people can be bumped off if they want to actually be laid off. So that's essentially that. And then we've also asked them to just give the just layoff package. And what that is what we've already agreed to in bargaining. So we want them to give that packet, like the things that we've agreed to in bargaining, to the people that are going to be laid off. And they essentially have said no. And I think the third bucket here is the contract negotiations, and I won't get into that too nitty gritty, but there's just certain provisions of things that they're trying to remove that are totally unacceptable for them to be attempting to remove, that we have said, these are the things you have to move away from.
Amazing. Thank you. Amazing summary, not amazing situation. I just want to, for the purpose of history, for folks who are watching this in the future, this is all happening in the context of a really terrible economy, where it's very difficult to find a job, and everything is more expensive than it used to be. And for an organization to be acting this way is not only against the values that Sierra Club purports to believe in, but it's also anti-worker. And it's really sad to see that things have gotten even worse since I was president at the beginning, but I'm really happy and proud that you all are in leadership and there to fight back against this. So I want to close out by giving you the last word, which is customary on this platform. You've given us a lot of really valuable information, and I think it's going to give folks context about how much you've been through. And I've had the pleasure of watching you develop as a leader. You were already a leader when I met you, but like you even become stronger of a leader. What would you want to say for folks who are watching you, go through this battle? I know you're going to win. I know you're going to get to a point where you have a great contract. I can feel that. But, what do you want folks to know about this moment and about the movement that you all lead?
Yeah, I mean, we're part of a much, like you kind of outlined, like unions everywhere are having to stand up more and more against bad actors in the workplace. And I think also that people are becoming more empowered to do that. And that it's the most important tool that we have to be exercising. And so I think it's just more and more like, this is where we're at. This is what the movement is. Unionize if you're not. And if you are unionized, actually enforce your contract. Like, if they're violating your rights, unfair labor practices and grievances, like there's a lot of tricks, and a lot of the times we as a union tried to work things out with Sierra Club, and it's just gotten worse. And so you're not being uncooperative by enforcing your contract. Like, you have to enforce your contract. And other than that, just that, like, Progressive Workers Union is like just been amazing. We've had immense growth over the last couple of years, and I am so excited to see what we can do as all of us have gotten our contracts and come together to actually push for change in the nonprofit industry. And I think that that is really huge. Like, it didn't really exist in the nonprofit industry like on a large scale like this until we were organizing and trying to move that needle further. And it's going to change the way that nonprofits can exploit workers, and that we as a working entity have to know that we're easily exploited because we care about what we do. And we have to be able to have boundaries and parameters around what we will allow to happen in the workplace in order for us to do our job. And that's kind of rambly, but just, yeah, I think we're all here, and organizing is the bread and butter. You got to organize members. They have to feel like they're part of this, not that it's a, top, I don't know, it's just only coming from the top down. You have to be as transparent as you possibly can about what's happening.
That was not rambling at all. That was brilliant. You were one of the earlier supporters of this platform, and thank you for your encouragement to keep it going. I think the original reason why we started this is now, I guess, more timely than ever. And once this fight is over and you all win, and once you had your baby, you have some time to recover from this fight. We'd love to have you back and to talk about some other stuff that's going on across the labor movement. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll keep you in our thoughts, and we'll support you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and Larry, and yeah, keep fighting.